So we just heard a really great speech on mental health and how it affects all of us. But I'm going to go into more into detail about mental health and a major side effect of mental health, which is actually suicide. How many of you, please raise your hand, if you've ever used the phrase, "I want to kill myself," some variation of that, or maybe even these emojis before when texting? So I know, yeah. I'd be surprised if not almost everyone is raising their hand, because I know personally I used to use that phrase a lot. And it's something that I hear pretty much daily, all around campus. But I want to challenge the idea of using this phrase, because it implies such a traumatic and serious topic in our lives, and especially because we don't even really realize what we're saying. A lot of us don't even know what it's like to go through something like this. And we kind of just toss around the phrase as if it doesn't mean anything. In Kelly Buchler's article, she states, "For many, it isn't funny when your joke becomes their reality." Suicides are an incredibly dark and heavy topic that, as a society, we don't really know how to deal with. So instead of talking about it in a serious or meaningful way, we just joke about it. The main problem is that we use suicide to dramatize and highlight our own personal problems when there are so many other ways to state how they are. Suicide just seems to be like a go-to phrase that we always choose. The point of the speech isn't to preach at you guys, make you guys feel guilty, or pick out people who specifically overuse this phrase. I really just want to bring awareness to what suicide is and how it can be slightly disrespectful to use this phrase around people who are struggling. First, I want to bring some facts up about suicide to show the severity and give you guys some perspective on how common it is. In the article, Untold Stories of Student Suicides, 1.5 out of 100 students on college campuses have attempted suicide before. Every 17 minutes around the world, someone completes a suicide, meaning in this class period alone, 7 people have killed themselves. The last statistic I want to bring up is from 15 Myths and Facts About Suicide and Depression, stating that rates in the US have increased dramatically. Youth today are twice as likely to commit suicide than compared to 50 years ago. I was pretty shocked when reading this, because I know that suicide has always been around, but I was shocked at how much it's increased, especially because it's something that we just don't really talk about. In the article, Suicide Prevention, it talks about the myth that people are scared to talk about suicide because they think it might give someone their idea. But this is actually not true at all. Talking about suicide with someone who's struggling is actually one of the most helpful things you can do. Because people going through some things when they're struggling, they really just need someone that will listen to them and ask questions and be serious about it so that they know the problem can be taken seriously. Personally, I've had a few people close to me take their own lives, so I can testify why it bothers me so much when people use the phrase, "I want to kill myself," when they don't mean it. I feel discouraged because I feel like people don't really know what it's like to lose someone or to be the person themselves who is struggling. Because I strongly believe that if someone had experienced this kind of first-hand experience, they would never use this phrase, just because they're embarrassed about something pretty trivial, like a boy they like not texting them back. In the article, What Can I Do to Help Someone Who May Be Suicidal, there are 3 main feelings that people feel when they are contemplating suicide. The first is overwhelming pain, where the pain you feel is going to exceed all coping resources that are available. Second is hopelessness, where the pain you're in is never going to get better and your life just looks like it's not going to go anywhere. And last is unbearable, where the pain you're in is pretty much an impossible burden to carry around. In Lorenzo Jensen's heart-ripping testimonials of how it feels to be suicidal, there's a quote from someone saying, "The torment in my head became too much to bear. I felt hopeless, I felt valueless, there was too much pain." If you keep this in mind, and you keep in mind the 3 feelings that it feels to be suicidal, your feelings towards the upcoming final weeks no way justify the same feelings of someone who's contemplating suicide. If you are going to kill yourself, the odds are not in your favor. According to 11 facts about suicide, for every 25 attempts, only 1 will actually work. Meaning there's a lot of survivors out there, a lot more than we might think about. Recently, I had a friend tell me to kill myself as a joke. Obviously, she didn't mean it. We were just joking around. It all started when I made fun of her for something, and that was her response. But if I was someone who had previously attempted suicide and had a friend tell me to do this, it would be pretty traumatic. A lot of people are good at hiding emotional pain and what's going on in their lives, so it's better to just avoid using this phrase at all. When you do lose someone to suicide, it can be a long grieving process. In the article, Frequently Asked Questions About Suicide, friends and family of someone who has passed away go through a lot of emotions ranging from guilt to shame to anger. So when I was trying to study the other day, and 2 students were procrastinating for their big architecture project by coming up with ways they were going to kill themselves. For over 5 minutes they were talking about this. They came up with 15 different scenarios of what they were going to do. And it just reminded me of all the emotions I felt when I had lost someone. In the moment too, I also felt really alone because I knew that the ignorant students had no idea what I'd gone through and what other people struggle with on a daily basis. They took the 5-word phrase of "I want to kill myself" to a whole new level by going into disturbing detail for each scene and laughing about it. But for the first time ever, I told them what I thought, and I told them that it was completely inappropriate to joke about this. And that was the first time I'd ever done this, and it felt really good. This year alone, 2 Cal Poly students have killed themselves. So we all are impacted by this one way or another. Campuses all across the nation are unfortunately dealing with the big rise in suicide rates. In Julia Shelfo's article in the New York Times, she states that anxiety is the most common mental health illness on college campuses, followed closely behind by depression. This year in February, the fraternity Sigma Pi had a suicide awareness week. Obviously, it was hard for me to see all this around campus, and the week was a bit of a downer because it just wasn't overall an uplifting week. It was more of a serious week. But it did make me feel understood because I felt like people understood how it feels to go through something traumatic and how it feels to lose someone and also how it feels to be that person. For the first time all year, I saw people on campus taking suicide seriously and talking about it. And now I know from statistics I wasn't the only person who genuinely appreciated this week that much. A lot of times, before someone's going to make a dramatic decision to kill himself, they're going to offer a cry for help. In the Mental Health America article titled Suicide, 8 out of 10 people gave very clear signs before going through with the suicide. So saying "I want to kill myself" is obviously not a sign that they actually are, because we just say it to describe our pain and frustration at something. They're probably going to say something more extreme like "I'm better off dead." But what if we're so busy joking about suicide and not taking it seriously that we don't even realize when they're being serious? Or what if the warning sign is saying "I want to kill myself," but as a society we've become so numb to the true meaning of this phrase? My hope is that the phrase "I want to kill myself" will be eliminated from our vocabulary and saved for when we actually mean it. I don't want you guys to never speak on the topic again or be afraid to talk about it, but my hope is that we can have better, valid conversations about severe mental disabilities. I hope that as a society, we can move towards discussing suicide without sarcasm and be more sensitive to people's issues so that they can be taken more seriously in their personal suffering.
Very quickly, any questions, comments, feedback from?
I really appreciated that whole speech. I know that everybody calls this week Dead Week, which well, there's me because it's one of the 3 top weeks that people of our age group commit suicide. And so, just simple, I remind people that it's Prep Week and not Dead Week.
Yeah.
Because there's a fine line. And I've had debates with people that say oh, you're just overthinking it,
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's really, really frustrating. So I appreciated you bringing that up.
Something else. It was what? Yeah. Okay, you said. Rachel Insta.
for us to read.
Gosh dang. Same thing again. Proves that it's good. Well, full screen.